Welcome back to Kryptolytix, giving you a fresh take on crypto analytics. And this is your crypto recap, where I cover some of the things going on in the crypto space. So let's jump in. Okay, so here we go. Just going to start off with the cycle chart, as I like to do. So Bitcoin's reclaimed 71K level, which is looking really nice. And if we get a weekly close up here, that's also really nice as well, because that will be the first weekly close we've had at this level since March, which was where we got our all-time high. So looking pretty good. I mean, we can see back in May we attempted, but we failed to close there. But, you know, a close at these levels, or even if we could close around 72.4, for example, that's the highest weekly close that we've had ever for Bitcoin. So it's looking pretty good. We'll see if we can hold these levels. Not really sure if we could or not, but time will tell. We'll have to see how weekend price action goes. But you know, given all the ETF inflows that we've seen over the last few days, we might get another few bullish days over the next couple of days, essentially. We'll have to see how it goes, obviously, because quite often you get midweek reversal points. So, you know, Thursday, Friday can be points of reversal. So, yeah, we'll just have to wait and see till the end of the week to see how this closes. But overall, it's looking pretty bullish. And, you know, we're still in that sort of long trade that I mentioned back around here on the 15th. So I shaved a little bit of my long off just because it was really big and hope for some sort of small pullback for a re-entry. I don't really know how big any pullback will be, or we might just end up shooting off. But again, we're at the top of the range here. So just keep that one in mind, is that, you know, we're in the top of the range. It's quite often that we get sort of pullbacks from there. From here, we might just shoot off to 80, 90K as the next stop, or we may just continue this range. Remember, as I mentioned in my last video, sometimes these ranging periods can go on for lengthened periods of time. For example, we went for 214 days in March last year. And so far, if we go from the all-time high or the peak, it's been 86 days. So just keep that in mind. But given the ETF inflows, there's definitely a decent chance that we could just keep running from here, let's be honest, but time will tell on that front. But if we're going to complete our ABC Elliott Wave corrective pattern, then this should be where we start to sort of move up from. So we had that overlapping price action, as I've mentioned a few times. According to Elliott Wave theory, this is just consolidation, essentially, and building up for what looks to be kind of like a bull flag, and a break above this level, convincingly, would be probably our path to 80 to 90K, essentially. But the stock market itself, there's a few things that aren't looking too great with the stock market. So, you know, if we are becoming sort of decorrelated with the stock market, then that's probably good for us, because we'll just go up in isolation. As in the crypto space, will go up potentially, and maybe the stock market will take a breather. But anyway, we'll have to see how it goes. There's plenty of new stuff to cover, so I'm just going to get straight into that, because there's a lot of really cool developments over in the Solana ecosystem and a few cool things that I saw that are worth reporting. So let's get into it. So just in, Bank of Canada cuts policy rate by 25 basis points. And so it begins. So here we go. We've got finally cutting interest rates. So, you know, the US haven't cut their interest rates yet. Neither have, you know, many other places, in light of trying to get back from the crazy inflation that we've had, essentially trying to get that under control. So Canada's taken the step, and we'll probably see more banks start to do the same, I would say. And here's a nice little recap here, actually, as a comment on Dan's post here. For those who are confused, crypto prices are inevitably proportional to interest rates. Higher interest rates, people keep money in the bank. Lower crypto prices. Also higher interest rates, if you've got a bank loan, like a home loan, you have to pay more interest on that. So that means less money to throw at risk assets. That's another one I could probably add to it. Canada's starting to lower its interest rates, and this could potentially signal the start of a bull run for crypto. Well, I mean, quite clearly we're in the middle of a bull run for crypto, but anyway, I guess he didn't really catch the memo on that one, but anyway. But yeah, regardless, that's looking pretty good for risk assets, and crypto is a risk asset. This is pretty crazy. So we had spot Bitcoin ETFs bought 12,508 Bitcoin yesterday. 12,508 Bitcoin. That's crazy. That's so much, while miners only produced 450 Bitcoin. So look at that. That's just really disproportional. The ETFs are just eating up Bitcoin supply like crazy. Like this, this Pac-Man, essentially. So these are the ETFs, and that's the Bitcoin issuance, I suppose. We've got also Thailand approving their first spot Bitcoin ETF, which is pretty big news. I mean, I don't know how big the Thailand market is, but again, it's just more exposure that we'll have and more fuel for that momentum ignition I mentioned in the last video, right? Everything adds up, right? So we've got here on CoinGlass, we can see clearly here, this huge spike, almost the same amount of inflows that we had back in March, which was when we got our all-time high for Bitcoin, right? Look at this, huge spike. So obviously Wall Street's seeing something. I think maybe they're rotating capital out of the stock market and into the Bitcoin ETF as a kind of maybe a hedge or some sort of diversification, I suppose you could say, because, you know, as I mentioned before, the stock market's taking a bit of a breather, although we did have some decent price action yesterday, but this is just, this is a massive inflow. And if we have a look over here at the Hong Kong ETFs, what have they been doing? Not a lot, actually, not a lot as of yet. So there was a decent inflow day. We had 467 Bitcoin net inflow a few days ago, which you don't have any reporting yet up here for yesterday's Hong Kong inflow. Hong Kong inflows haven't been too big, to be honest, so not that too much to report. But if that was 467 Bitcoin, then as we saw before, that's still higher than the amount of Bitcoin that was mined on that day. So anyway, it's all looking pretty good. It's all heating up, essentially. This is the good stuff we like to see. So I saw this post. I just want to bring some reality to this post, I suppose. You know, see, people might throw around stuff like this on Twitter. So if you do, then, I mean, just take it with a grain of salt, maybe a whole bag. If you see anything like this, I just decided to grab all of these price predictions. Essentially, I'm gonna sell $6,200. Just absurd. I mean, don't get me wrong, I would love Sol to be worth $6,200, but let's have a look. I just added the top 4 in this list market cap. So in this list, the price would be $6.6 trillion for Bitcoin, ETH would be 1.4 trillion, Sol would be 2.9 trillion, and Doge would be 5.8 trillion. So that's 16.7 trillion, as well as Doge flipping ETH and Sol, as well as flipping the top stocks in the New York Stock Exchange. Now, I actually need to update this list because now Nvidia has flipped Apple. So the Nvidia is actually sitting at 3 trillion now, just under Microsoft, and Apple's about the same. So, I mean, I don't really need to update that. I just said it, so hopefully that's enough for you. Pretty crazy though, Nvidia's been doing so well. I mean, because it's cemented itself as a top AI play, essentially, as it's necessary for the computation of AI processors using those CUDA cores, which facilitate parallel processing. Anyway, so this is just crazy. And if Bitcoin does go to 300K, like people are saying, because that is something that's being thrown around, that's $6.6 trillion, right? That's double Microsoft and Nvidia combined. Okay, so just keep that in mind. You know, I've got a lot of hopes for crypto and Bitcoin, especially going forward. But you know, let's just be a bit more realistic and sort of lower our expectations, because we don't want to be disappointed. Okay, we don't want to be disappointed. It's better if we're pleasantly surprised than disappointed. I mean, the bull market's going to give us a lot of amazing things, and it's definitely something to look forward to. But just be wary of unrealistic price targets is all I'm going to say, because regardless, there are amazing things that will happen this cycle, but a $6,000 Sol is highly unlikely. I think, and a $40 Doge is highly unlikely, but that doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, even if Sol, for example, goes to $300, $400, $500, which is probably a bit more realistic this cycle, potentially even $1,000, I mean, that's still massively up from where we are right now anyway, at least as far as I'm concerned. So anyway, let's move on from there. Did see this post. Nvidia is now worth than the entire crypto asset class. Yes, that's right, because I think that the market cap right now for crypto is 2.57 trillion. Just looking at my other screen over there. So yeah, there you go. The entire crypto asset class fits within the Nvidia market cap. So that's pretty nuts, right? And that's the entire Canadian GDP, more than China's equity market, etc., etc. I don't know just how much this will mean for price for ETH when the ETF is launched, but apparently BlackRock seeded their Bitcoin ETF with 100K before launch, and BlackRock is now seeding their ETH ETF with 10 million before launch. So there you go. Again, $10 million in ETH's mammoth $500 billion market cap, or thereabouts, doesn't really mean all that much, admittedly, but still, that's, you know, the ETF hasn't gone live yet, so we'll have to see. Maybe there'll be more. But anyway, we'll have to see how that goes. Now, there was this video on CNBC where Jim Cramer was talking about Bonk ETF and a whole bunch of others as well. It's just funny to me. He calls Cardano Cordana. And, you know, last year he called it Cardanzo. he just really has no idea how to say Cardano, does he? Like, I don't understand. Like, he can say everything else, although he did say Soldano or something at some point. But anyway, whatever. Gary's response was just standard. Like, he said, like, happy birthday to the SEC, and, you know, these assets are unregulated and this and that. So who cares? We don't. It didn't do anything negative to the price of crypto or anything like that. I think we're past that now. He's really been pulled in line, I think, by BlackRock. Essentially, whatever BlackRock says goes is pretty much how it works. So yeah, anyway, I think the thing I got out of this is just Jim Cramer asked Gary Gensler whether there should be a Bonk ETF, which was pretty funny, I guess. So anyway, so BlackRock, or BLK, and Citadel Security Funds plan to start a new national stock exchange in Texas to take on the New York Stock Exchange. So this would be better for taxes and stuff as well, I believe, because New York, at least their state tax is much higher, whereas Texas is much better. So I guess they could make more money in that way, I believe. So the Texas Stock Exchange has raised $120 million and plans to file registration documents with US Securities and Exchange Commission. So there you go. And Matt said hearing it would be on Solana. I mean, that's what Solana was designed for. I mean, that would be epic, but BlackRock is sort of positioning themselves more towards ETH. So I feel like they'll probably build their own centralized layer 2. My best guess is it'll be a completely centralized ETH L2, and then maybe they will go to Ethereum for their real world asset narrative. They have an ETH wallet. So that's my best guess. Nothing confirmed on that yet, but anyway, I think it'll be centralized. I was talking about eCorp before, as in within Mr. Robot, and that's their eCorp is their evil bank or whatever. Well, you could say BlackRock is kind of the same. I mean, if you look at all the stuff they invest in, you know, with Blackstone just buying up properties away so that normal people can't buy them at an affordable price, which is bringing housing prices up. And, you know, all of the funding that they do around the world with regards to, you know, all the war and all that sort of stuff. I mean, I won't go into all the details. They're not our saviors, but they've definitely helped Bitcoin and Ethereum's prices, no doubt about that. But I really think they'll probably go with something more centralized. I'm happy for them to prove me wrong, obviously. So anyway, I don't want to get too down into the weeds on that. So let's get into the Solana ecosystem. So who else bought the dip on Sol? Love to see Solana at 174 again. Actually went to 175.60, which is pretty cool. But at the time I posted this, my long on BloFin, which I mentioned in not my previous video, but the one before when I was on vacation, was actually up 30%. So there you go. And if you weren't aware, I'm a BloFin partner officially. You can sign up to BloFin if you want. Link is in the description below, or you can scan the QR code there on the screen and you'll get a sign up bonus. And again, I'm a big fan of BloFin and I quite like the platform. It's set up really nicely, nice clean interface. And I really, really like this. Look at this astronaut with my logo in it. I really like this. So yeah, nice and clean interface, you know, limited KYC and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I mean, if you were looking at trading perps that's on an exchange that's not overly invasive and has some really cool features, then I recommend you check out BloFin. Again, link in the description below if you're interested. So anyway, I did see this by Gumshoe. Now, you know, when you see, you know, the whale alert with the tether print, for example, that's quite bullish for us in the crypto market. So this is definitely something to watch. Solana had $1.5 billion worth of stablecoin inflows since December the 7th. During that time, Sol rallied 246%. So when the stablecoin market cap goes back to all-time highs, Sol will be at $350 minimum. That's speculation by Gumshoe, obviously. But this is our version of like the tether print. And you can actually go over to DeFi Llama and you can see when those stablecoins are flowing in to the market. But generally when we see that, that's quite a bullish sign. So it's definitely something to keep our eye out on. Now I did see this on Binance. They said they were going to start launching small caps now to support the crypto ecosystem. And on this list of these small caps that they're launching with low circulating supplies, we saw Wormhole, which is a Solana native token, and Jupiter, which is a Solana native token. So there you go. And just on this, Binance is committed to fostering a healthy and sustainable market environment and always prioritizing users' interest. In recent months, they have observed a trend of tokens launching at high valuations with low initial circulating supplies. And they addressed this trend and highlighted the implications in their report. So this is definitely something that you sort of need to know. You want to avoid projects that have this mechanism built in, because essentially as soon as they launch, they're at such high valuations due to like pre-sale and all that sort of stuff that, you know, the opportunity is kind of gone, or at least significantly reduced, at least unless you've got a lot of money, I suppose. But regardless, they put this on their list. So It's definitely something positive, and it's something that I guess they're kind of promoting in a way. So there could mean that Droop and Wormhole be about to catch a bid with support from Binance, I suppose. Also, we had a PYTH breakout finally, at least with regards to my strategy. Whether that means it's going up from here or not is completely up to interpretation, but this strategy has so far been 100% hit rate, at least for PYTH, and that one has triggered a buy signal. So there you go. If you're looking to buy more PYTH for the Monad airdrop, maybe this might be about the right time, if that is something that you want to do and speculate on. But otherwise, that big token unlock didn't really do too much to price. If you did want to buy PYTH, it's probably just about safe to, I suppose, at these levels after a pretty big drawdown, to be honest. I think most of this was just pre-selling because of this massive token unlock. It's like a big chunk of their fully diluted value was unlocked. And admittedly, you probably wouldn't see immediate reaction off of that event because of this massive drawdown. I think with regards to, you know, all of the investors and all that sort of stuff, they'll probably sell as price out's going on, and like, you know, TWAP it as in time weighted average price. They'll DCA out, which is going to suppress price appreciation a little bit more than what we had here, because there was a lot of the supply was not available for trading. So we had decent price action here, whereas now there's a massive increase in supply. So it just means that we might not get the same kind of momentum, but we'll have to see anyway. This is still a tier 1 Oracle, up there with Chainlink as far as I'm concerned, and a pretty good project. And again, for me, the reason why I have the amount that I have is due to the potential Monad airdrop. And I just realized my camera wasn't plugged in, but anyway, you don't really need to see my face for the stuff that came before this, or at all, but regardless, here I am again. Okay, so anyway, let's continue on, shall we? So Sol is not pumping, but that doesn't mean it's slowing down. Well, I mean, Sol had some pretty decent price action, I suppose, but this was just before that move up. This is a nice little summary by Gumshoe here. Highlights of the week: Mother hit $100 million market cap. I think it went to 110 maybe, which is 20x in a few days. GME meme coin flipped USDT's trading volume. Jupiter hits 200 billion in trading volume. Solana flipped Ethereum in on-chain trading volume as well. So I want to cover a little bit more about Sanctum. So I think I mentioned in the last video that they hit a $1 billion TVL, which is absolutely enormous. It's a really, really large amount of money in the protocol. Although I don't know how much of that was just airdrop farming, admittedly. But regardless, the LSTs that Sanctum have facilitated have become a big part of the ecosystem now, I believe. And I think with some of the things they have planned, there could be all manner of cool things that we could see the LSTs achieve if their plans come to fruition. So anyway, with regards to Sanctum, it's a wrap. The measurement of Sanctum points, or EXP, for Season 1 is now complete. So how did you go? Let me know in the comments below, you know, what kind of XP you got if you want. And yeah, I guess I want to go into all the details on the finalization of Sanctum Wonderland. But yeah, this is how I've got. Apparently, this is out of 300,000 wallets. As I mentioned, I think previously, the mean wallet holding is 0.29 INF. And some of that could just be dust from the Socian Sol days, because they were Socian before they rebranded to Sanctum, and not Wonderland participants. So I think there's like 900,000 or something wallets that hold INF, and now we know that it's 300,000 wallets roughly that participated in Wonderland. And I think a lot of this would have just been Sybil farmers, like people putting a small amount of INF in. But I don't think that the airdrop will be tier based. I think it's based on XP, but they haven't confirmed anything yet. But anyway, I got to 982 in this wallet, about 307 or 308 roughly million XP on this one. So yeah, anyway, I did farm it pretty intensely, as I mentioned in the last video. I'm also happy to see that they won't be punishing multiple wallets. They said that in their AMA, which I'll go into detail in a second. My pets levels were about 62 to 120. Most of them were sitting at like 82, I think it was, or 80 or so. And I only had one that was 120, and then one that was 100 and something as well, I think, which was Bonk Sol. I had 18 out of 18, but I actually just last night swapped 15 of them. So the ones I've kept are Dupe Sol, Bonk Sol, H Sol, and of course INF, which is my biggest holding, because INF I really like because it's a basket of all of them essentially. And any trading that takes place within the Sanctum protocol is also added as fees into their yield that they bake into the price of INF. But anyway, so all of the other 15 of the pets or other LSTs that I had, I actually swapped into WIF Sol, And the reason why I did that, and I think I've already mentioned this in previous videos, that the staking yield is reflected or DCA'd into WIF tokens instead of getting Solana yield. So out of this, I think it was about 15 Sol, essentially. So it's not a lot overall, but that was essentially what I had that I wasn't rotating around. I do actually still hold my Lane Sol as well. And I might just keep that because Lane is quite high. Their APY is quite high. So I think the about 110 Sol equivalent or 120 Sol equivalent is in Lane Sol at the moment. I'll probably leave that for now until I see, some other things come up that look really cool. Because Sanctum's really starting to build out their LSTs. And then now that Sanctum Wonderland's over, essentially now we can look at some of the other options. At least if you were farming for the Wonderland airdrop. But again, I was definitely happy to see they weren't punishing multiple wallets. So that was what I got. This is in SonarWatch because it can detect all of your wallets. And I had 3 where I was participating in, and these were all sort of isolated. You got 980, and then 7.3K was 30 million XP, and 8.2K on the rank was 25 million. So anyway, that was where I got with it. Anyway, so Clouds here is, I would say, a influencer in the space. Got his rank to about 40,000, which I think is about standard, I would say, unless you were like aggressively farming it. So yeah, anyway, I mean, farming it was easy. All you had to do was hold the LST in your wallet. But you could also put it into Camino and a few other things as places as well, Meteora, etc. But for me, I have now moved some of my Dupe Sol into Camino Multiply. I went to about 4x on Camino Multiply for this, and I put about half of my Dupe Sol into the Camino Multiply, because when you have a look, for some reason the website's flicking around and I can't actually check it, so I can't show you, but I think it's about 30% yield for about 4x, and I think 4x is pretty decent. That's about 70, anyway, I gotta get off the screen. It's about a 75% loan to value ratio, which isn't too bad. I think liquidation is at 90% and 80% is the sort of absolute max cap. So that would have to be a massive depeg of Dupe Sol in order for that to be dangerous. And I don't think we'll get that kind of, I don't think we'll see at least in my case, is it 25% depeg on Dupe Sol? It might be like 0.5%, 5%, or maybe 1 or 2% at most, I would think. So even if you lever up to 5x, which I wouldn't recommend personally, I just did 4 and I think the average was 4.5. That's still good yield. That's still really decent yield. So anyway, I watched the AMA by the Sanctum team last night and took notes, and also grabbed the post from Sanctum, which was a very long post, and I decided to make a summary for it. So here it is here. So the summary for the Cloud token, which is the token for Sanctum, has been announced with the finalization of Sanctum Wonderland. So let's go over some of the points here. So the token is going to be called Cloud, and they selected that through community polling. With regards to community involvement, they took a lot of feedback from the community on tokenomics, and a big shout out to the whiteboard guy, or James Lee Hanley, as I mentioned in the last video, for his suggestions on the community allocation. So let's wrap up season 1. So they ended it ahead of schedule due to overwhelming success and engagement. Participation was about 300,000 wallets and thousands of active Discord users. Season 2 plans is definitely planned, but they're not going to rush it to ensure quality, and they'll include new features like pet evolutions, because we didn't quite get that in season 1, so I guess season 2 will probably get pet evolutions. Their commitment is a transparent, decentralized, and fair public launch via the Jupiter Launchpad, because they did win the LFG vote for that. VC sales, so no VC pre-sales, everyone can buy Cloud at launch. Supply is 18% of total supply is unlocked at launch, starting at about 50 million FDV, which is pretty good. Community engagement, public documentation for the token launch process, Twitter broadcasts, whiteboard sessions, and calls are planned. With regards to total distribution, the total supply will be 1 billion Cloud tokens. Initial circulating will be about 180 million, or 18% of the total supply. Community reserve will be 30%. Now, this isn't covered in the Twitter post, and that's why this is alpha. But the community reserve is governed by the community for active staking rewards, so they might do their own active staking rewards, akin to how Jupiter's doing it, for community grants and future airdrops. So there you go, that's actually quite a lot that they've allocated to future airdrops. Strategic reserve will be 13%, so this is liquidity mining, ecosystem rewards, so on and so forth. Team will be about 25%, and that'll be locked up for 1 year with a 3-year linear release schedule. And just keep in mind, 25% might sound like a lot, but Jitto, Drift, even Jupiter were about 20 to 25%. So this is pretty standard. They just took that from existing entities. So I think this is okay. Investors, 13% sold at 50 to 60 million FDV. The 1% was actually the fee for the Jupiter LFG. So that's what that's for. And the 8% there was for the Jupiter ASR rewards. So we can see the breakdown here. So 8% LFG launch, that's what that's for. And the LFG dupe is the fee. And 10% will go to the airdrop for Wonderland. And then the rest you can see clearly here, which I already have mentioned. So token utility, they're still yet to finalize all the utility for the token, but obviously it'll be governance and for capital control, staking. So the one thing they mentioned they might do, or they probably will do, is that if you want to launch an LST, then essentially you need to stake a certain amount of their token, and it'll be required to partner with Sanctum and create LSTs. The airdrop mechanisms, strategies to separate true believers from dumpers, possibly up to 6 days for the airdrop akin to Drift. So Drift had a 6-hour linear sort of release for their airdrop. So immediately you could get half of your allocation. And then as the time progressed, your allocation slowly went up to 100%. So if they do the same thing, they discussed potentially doing something like this up to 7 days, I believe it was. So I don't know what they'll do yet. They haven't locked it in yet. They were thinking of doing because they felt like, and even I felt like that helped the release, at least the price stability. And we did see some positive growth for Drift straight after all of that initial 6-hour period was actually the bottom for Drift. Now, one thing I thought was really interesting is that they do not want to pay any centralized exchange listing fees. So their commitment is no fees paid to centralized exchange. They want to focus on on-chain trading via Jupiter and really go for that decentralized meta, essentially is really what they're going for. Because one of the reasons why they said this is because a lot of exchanges ask for really large allocations. We're talking like between 1 to 10% of token supply, or even sometimes they ask for up to $500,000 to list on the exchanges. And admittedly, it does expose to a lot more capital via centralized exchanges. But what they were saying is that they prefer the token to be in the hands of people within the Solana ecosystem because they're the ones that actually will use the token. Whereas people on exchanges, all they'll be doing is buying it to speculate on, buying it and dumping it as soon as they get some sort of profit. So essentially, that's one of the reasons why they're going for this. So we probably won't see as much momentum, I think, behind the price. But hopefully we just see a slow grind to the upside on that. Obviously, there will be people who will just be selling their airdrop. So that's another thing to factor in as well. But that's just something to factor in as well with regards to how price will go. And that will be mainly down to participants within the Solana ecosystem. So season 2 details, again, nothing confirmed yet, but there'll be pet evolutions. Unlikely they'll do the puzzles again, like the quests. You remember those? And still, they'll be taking a long break before starting season 2. And in season 2, they'll likely have a lot more LSTs as pets, for example, and a lot more integration. Because, for example, multiply within Camino was not counted with the XP. So something like that probably would be counted in the next one. They also said they will create a user profile page for connecting multiple wallets. So if you're like me and you had multiple wallets, you will most likely have a sort of profile page where you can attach most of your wallets to the same place. So you can sort of claim all within the one place, I assume, is kind of what they're going for there. Another few things I thought worth mentioning was they are working with D-Bridge for a multi-chain launch on Jupiter. So that's pretty cool. I think what that will mean is during the LFG, you'll be able to cross-chain from other chains to participate within the launch, which I think is really cool. Again, details will be revealed in the future on that. Referral codes, so the cupcakes that people were farming, will be calculated later. And they said there will be no penalty for self-referrals, which I think was pretty cool. I just assumed that if you referred yourself, you would be punished because you get all these cupcakes from just like, you know, essentially all these different wallets and you just refer yourself from one to the next. So you just get cupcakes out of that. That's what some people may have done. They said they weren't going to punish it, which I thought was pretty nice of them, I suppose, because that's kind of like, that's kind of a Sybil approach to airdrop farming, I suppose. But anyway, maybe that's still up in the air. We'll have to see. But yeah, they mentioned something called an alpha vault, which is a bot that buys the tokens just before it's available for the rest of the launch. And the point of this alpha vault is that it buys immediately at like the entry price, but the tokens that you buy in there will be locked with a vesting period. I don't know what the duration will be. Maybe it'll be a week, maybe it'll be 2 weeks. Not really sure, but if you want the token at the lowest possible price as per the launchpad, then you can use this. I probably wouldn't use this because if we saw from Drift and UPROC and many other tokens that have been released recently, they release at a certain price and then they come down drastically. So I probably wouldn't do this personally. Will I buy this token? Yes, I will, because I want to use it already for LST, to make my own LST. Essentially, that's kind of one thing that I was potentially looking at, but also just to support the project because I really like it. Anyway, so yeah, and also with regards to community events, they've got the after party. I think they'll be throwing the after party at Breakpoint in Singapore in September, and they'll be giving away merch. They're talking about merch. And they'll also be attending the Solana Summit in Malaysia. So there you go. That's everything you need to know, I would say. And just to confirm here from Jay, a lot of people were asking about if their points would have been calculated from anything outside of the initial 5 integrations, and the answer is certainly a no, at least not for this season, right? So the 5 integrations were Armada and Meteora specific LP pools, MarginFi, Camino, and Solend ISC pools. That was so if you had any of your LSTs in any of here, except for Camino Multiply, then they would have been counted overall. But I think this is fair personally. I think the seasons break up the evolution of Sanctum. So I think it was all good and understandable in the end. Another thing I saw was that Vault or VSOL mentioned that Wonderland Season 1 is over and has ended, and they are working with Sanctum team to collect all the data on the Vaulty pet levels. So initially I wasn't sure what the pet levels would actually mean, but what I think this means is that, at least for Vault, they'll have Vault points based on the level of your Vaulty pet. So I think mine was like level 62 or something like that. So I don't know what the Vault levels will be, and every LST will have their own rewards mechanism in place for this. So just keep that in mind. But as you can see quite clearly, the pet level will mean something, I think, to the individual project. So you'll have to keep your eye on the various pages for these validators to see what you will get for your pet level within Sanctum. Also, we had Drift announcing pre-launch marketplace for the cloud token. So Drift will be listing cloud perps. So not spot, obviously, just for perps trading, pre-market perpetual futures, and that is live right now. So if you want to know more, Drift will be hosting a spaces with Sanctum tomorrow at 9 p.m. EST, and I'll definitely be listening to it. Some more info down here. You can set a reminder. That is happening tonight, at least as per my time anyway. At the moment, the price for the pre-launch is 45 cents. This is kind of arbitrary because we don't really know what the EXP will mean in terms of the airdrop, because I know a lot of people want to know when airdrop. Well, literally they didn't want to discuss the airdrop. They said that the XP is important, but besides that, they haven't locked in what the EXP will mean. But I guess I imagine if, for example, one EXP is 0.001 tokens, because I just was thinking, people had so many millions of XP, so I couldn't imagine it would be much more than this maybe. But yeah, I guess if you had 100 million XP, it would be about $45,000, which doesn't really make any sense. So maybe it would be 0.0001 tokens per XP. Who knows? Because that $45,000 airdrop is a lot for 100 million XP. I think maybe that would be more like a 4,500, maybe, I don't know. So regardless, we'll have to see what happens. It was similar to like the Drift airdrop, for example. Drift airdrop, the points were like quite low, but the airdrop was much higher than that, right? So for example, if you had like 18 points, Drift points, you actually got about 18,000 tokens. So they still need to work out what this even means. And again, this is pre-launch price. This is not the actual launch price. So if you feel like speculating on the pre-launch price, then you can do so over on Drift. I think that it will probably go up and then start coming down at some point, and then during launch, it'll probably, I'm just going to assume it's going to sell off. So maybe an opportunity to pre-sell your airdrop, I suppose, if you will. But that's completely up to you what you do with that, because that's what these pre-launch sort of markets are designed for, is for essentially locking in a value. So if you feel like 45 cents is a fair launch price based on total supply and everything like that, or FDV, then you can place a short trade to lock in that price. But anyway, I think I haven't developed a strategy for this. I haven't thought about what I'm going to do for it yet, because honestly, I don't want to sell my airdrop. So maybe this is a way to lock in value without being exposed to the fluctuations from the launch. But anyway, I'll let you decide what you want to do with this. Also, people were swapping out their INF immediately to Sol right now. That caused a slight depeg, but it was very, very small. I think it was like 0.1%. But also, if you have a look here, that's kind of normal. and it just snaps right back into peg. And yeah, I left all my INF and my Dupe Sol and Bonk Sol. So yeah, it didn't really do that much. And again, we were talking a very small percentage in terms of price, as in the fluctuation from the peg. And as you can see from my chart here, it's still on track and just snapped straight back into peg, as I'd say arbitragers would have bought that up anyway, right? I saw this LST that I thought was quite innovative. Now, I won't go into all of the details on it, but essentially what I believe it is it's a LST or liquid stake token for Solana called PyTH. Now, it's an LST NFT. So it's an LST for NFT projects, essentially is what I believe this is. And the TLDR on what it is that Lilypad users can mint NFT projects with PyTH. Depending on the amount of NFTs minted, the project's pool of PyTH accruing yield grows, simultaneously ensuring that each NFT is backed by PyTH. So this is pretty cool. The more NFTs are minted, the more PyTH is locked within an LST NFT collection, boosting the yield that a project's team receives during each epoch. This new LST NFT standard allows for projects to receive sustainable yield that goes towards supporting their expenses over a longer time horizon, while reducing the risk of users traditionally associated with minting. So they're saying end rugs forever. I don't know, I think it's pretty cool. It's essentially a LST NFT launchpad. I guess to me, I just see this as some of the really cool innovative stuff that you can do with Sanctum LSTs. If you watch the AMA, they talk about their end state where they really want to boost the utility and use case for LSTs. I mean, WIF Sol is really cool, as I mentioned before, where you get reflected WIF tokens for holding Solana. So essentially, you'll hold Solana, and then WIF is, because you're holding Solana, WIF is just DCA'd straight into your wallet as they sell the yield from the staking into WIF tokens. I think that's really cool, personally. And stuff like this, I think, is really cool. And they said something about Coffee Sol. I don't know. Anyway, I think probably go in and check the AMA if you really want to know their vision. But they've got this grand vision where LSTs can be used for all sorts of things. For example, like if you hold it, then you get free coffees or something like that. You know, and it's paid out of the staking yield from Solana. So stuff like that. I mean, come on, like, these are some really cool ideas. And you know, you've got stuff like Eigenlayer and restaking. I mean, this is completely blowing that out of the water, I think, in terms of the utility and the usefulness of it. But anyway, I think that's a wrap for the Sanctum stuff. Still a lot more information to be released and coming soon. When airdrop, we don't know. When token launch, we don't know. And how much airdrop, we don't know. So we have to wait, is essentially what the long and short of it is. So anyway, Zeus Network is working on their Apollo system, and I think it's going into testnet phase now. So there you go. So the Muses upgrade is in place. So they're proud to announce that Apollo by Zeus has successfully launched the final testnet. This makes the last testing phase before BTC arrives on Solana for the first time in history. I mean, technically we had wrapped Bitcoin via Solid and a few other entities, but they're saying this is the first proper sort of Bitcoin on Solana. But we did say that 21 BTC is integrating Bitcoin into Solana as well. So I guess we've got a few projects that are bringing Bitcoin to Solana. But nevertheless, these guys will be more ingrained in the Solana DeFi ecosystem. They've already got partnerships with Camino, MarginFi, and Solend for adding your Bitcoin as collateral and then borrowing stablecoins against it, and then potentially earning yield on your Bitcoin as well. And it'll be ZBTC, and it'll be completely backed by real native Bitcoin, right? So it's not wrapped Bitcoin, it's backed by real native Bitcoin, similar to 21 BTC as well, actually. So anyway, if you are a bit of a tech nerd like myself, and you're interested in the tech of Solana and the core processes that underpin the facilitation of various operations within DeFi, GooseFX have some really cool blog posts. I liked this one about RPCs, and you know, if you want to know what they are, then you can check out the blog post. For the sake of the video duration, I won't go into all the details, but if this interests you, then you can come over to my X and you can check it out, or you can go into GooseFX website, which is blog.goosefx.io, and you know, for example, they go into what RPCs are. And if you know who Mert is, Helios is a RPC, as well as Triton is another one. I've explained what RPC nodes are in the past, and I was actually just tempted to say Helium because, anyway, there's just this running thing going with Mert and Helios and Helium. There are different projects. Helium is mobile phone plans that are decentralized on Solana, and Helios is the RPC provider. And people keep mixing it up. So anyway, it's kind of an ongoing joke almost at this point. I don't know. Anyway, this is really cool, a really, really cool blog post. And if you want to know what an RPC is, then you can essentially check it out here. I mentioned in the past what RPC nodes are, so I won't go into it again. And if you want all the details, then come check this out. I think it's really cool. They've got more than this. Like they've got one on FireDancer, which I covered in great detail in my last video, and I'll probably try and do a video on it actually dedicated to it. But anyway, we've got Camino Finance, what's FireDancer, oracles in crypto, what are RPCs. I think they're really well put together. So if you want to know more about that stuff, then you can come check it out on blog.goosefx.io. Again, GooseFX is a trading platform on Solana. They've actually been around since the last cycle, to be honest. So they've been around for quite a while. You can farm, trade, perps up to 10x leverage, etc., etc. So they don't have as much traction, I don't think, as say your Drift, for example, or Zeta Markets, but nevertheless, I think it's a really cool platform. And again, they've been around since the last bull market, so they've been building for quite some time now. So according to Camino here, there's only one thing better than Sol is more Sol. So over 500 million in LSTs are now deployed in Camino Multiply, as I mentioned before. At the current rates, Multiply users are earning a total of 515 Sol per day. That's a lot. So there you go, there's your dupe Sol. That's about 35% at the moment if you wind it up to 5x, and it's probably about close to 30% if you wind it up to 4x like I did. So anyway, that's a lot of Sol that they're paying out, and that's leveraging the borrow and winding it up in a lend and borrow loop, essentially. So there you go. New proposals up for discussion: launch Drift staking vault and fee discounts for stakers. Now, I actually mentioned the Drift vaults in the last video, so you can check out my last video if you want more details on it, or come check out this post for proposals there. But also this is different. So this one's actually on driftgov.discourse.group. So this one's slightly different. Like this is just the discussion for the vote. And I think the vote actually takes place elsewhere. But anyway, that's just some progress on Drift with regards to the token. And also they put out a pretty decent post here. In this post, they covered some of the points, what their vision and their mission is, the real world assets, integration, some listings they have planned, fuel, which is just a section that hasn't been filled out yet, but it's just something on Drift that they have planned, governance and more. So, their mission is to build an on-chain NASDAQ or CME where you can trade any asset with any collateral, which is essentially what you can do at the moment. Not any collateral, but there's a lot of different collateralized assets you can put in there, and they all have their own collateral weight or LTV or whatever you want to call it. So I think this is one of the most powerful things ever, because essentially you can, put in Sol and then trade that Sol to then buy more Sol on leverage. For example, 10x, like 20x if you're super degen. So they've got some listings that coming up, but they've blurred it all out. So I don't really know what any of this is. This could be the cloud token. I'm not really sure. Did anyone guess? No one guessed. Fuel is the future of the rewards program. So before it was the points program, and now it's fuel, and it's already being tracked. So whatever you do on Drift is currently being tracked for the next rewards schedule. And their governance will be taking place in Realms. And also there was the Futaki proposal, which I mentioned in my last video as well. So anyway, just a few things and some progress for Drift protocol, which again is my favorite decentralized exchange. Now, there's been a bit of drama going around between ETH and Sol. And I think a lot of it started with, well, there was two things that sort of caused it. So I guess let's go over. Vitalik was saying he's feeling unhappy about the cycle celebrity experimentation so far. This was in reply to this. If Mother breaks into sustainable value creation, it'll also be the mother of this cycle's celebrity experimentation. Now, I mentioned Mother in the last video. I did buy a little bit of it. I think it's up about 70% or something at the moment. He really doesn't like this. So financialization as a means towards an end, I can respect if the end is worthy. Healthcare, open source software, art, etc. Sure. Financialization as the final product. It's a meme coin. Most meme coins don't serve any of these purposes, right? This reply is also with regards to his other post where he was basically saying all of the meme coins on Solana he's not a big fan of, essentially. And, this is kind of a reply to both of those, which the other post I won't bother showing. But anyway, it's essentially the same sort of thing. And I shared my opinion on Mother, where I think that, has a lot of exposure and it's a way to onboard non-crypto natives into crypto. So the way I see it is Ethereum is focused on institutional operation and onboarding. You got BlackRock with they want to tokenize everything onto the Ethereum chain, whereas Solana is the chain for the masses. Solana's geared towards abundance. So having a system where it can create many tokens, whereas ETH is sort of focused on quality, right? That's what I picked up from the Drake and Anatoly debate, Now that has created a bit of friction between Solana and ETH communities, at least over the last couple of days, with those comments by Vitalik and even Justin Drake being so harsh towards Solana, essentially just, basically saying that Ethereum is the best and Solana is worthless. That's essentially like what I was getting from it. So this is a pretty decent take on it. So Justin's whole argument and demeanor seems to devolve into some schoolboy histrionics that felt so out of touch with the industry and ETH's haughty-taughty, I guess, research culture. His comment about quality over quantity regarding meme coins is particularly shocking, well, according to him anyway, but some people don't like it, and that's fair enough. And for me, I don't mind it. So the last few organizations to attempt similar gatekeeping tactics off the top of his head are banks versus digital currencies, newspaper versus the internet or Web 2, Catholic Church versus the printing press. That's an interesting one. And he and me too will choose the chaos of abundance over your notion of quality any day. So we had this.
When you have an exotic island, you have exotic life forms that emerge. You have weird things like geobodens and dog with hats and all of these things. And you can have circle jerking within this little island where everyone's happy, worshiping these little images. But even Solana, which is the primary place for meme coins, is still minuscule. Look, Solana has tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of meme coins. If you take the sum of the market values of all the meme coins, is about $10 billion. On Ethereum, you have one meme coin called Shiba Inu, which is $15 billion, a single meme coin. And this is where we see the distinction between quality and quantity. Anatoly and Solana is going in for quantity, and at the expense of all sorts of things that are more important in the grand
So just because I asked Anatoly the same question, I want to ask you.
So that's where I got that summary that I mentioned before, that Ethereum's going over quality, not quantity. Now, it's up to you how you feel about it, but also, you see all the .eths coming out and essentially, dumping on the quantity aspect. Now, I think that Anatoly held his own pretty well in that debate. And, if you want to watch it, go check it out. But I just felt like it turned into ETH attacking Solana and Anatoly having to defend his position on Solana. I'm quite biased, obviously, but I felt like Anatoly's points were valid. And I get what Ethereum's trying to do, but I don't know. I still am super bullish on Solana, and I think that this kind of archaic approach doesn't really make that much sense for the mass sort of adoption of crypto. So anyway, this was the other post that Vitalik said, or this was a reply here. It said, a quick summary of features that a celebrity crypto project needs to have for me to be more willing to respect it. Have some kind of public good goal that it's serving, other than enriching the celebrity and early adopters. Realistically, either an art project or the ... Anyway, so Iggy actually donated money to rescuing koalas. So, I mean, that's pretty nice. She is Australian after all. I don't know if that was in response to this. I think she did that before, or maybe she did it in response to this. I'm not really sure. But anyway, but the thing, my take on this, I guess, is that .eths are trading coins with 1 billion plus market caps. I mean, we're talking 15 billion in Shiba, right? So the opportunity for retail lies in these lower cap coins. Even though it feels a little bit PvP, it exists in a form only abundance can offer. So the more tokens means lower market caps overall, which means price can go crazy with a smaller amount of capital. So Solana's way is to tokenize everything. So .eths are just salty that the mother chain can't facilitate that. That's my take on it anyway. And the funny thing is that Jenna token actually went to ETH, and that serves absolutely no other purpose than, I guess, to make her money, I suppose. But anyway, I think that Iggy's probably more likely to do something positive with it. Yeah, that's up to you how you feel about this, but this is kind of like the heated debate going on at the moment. And it's kind of like pulled a lot of ETH maxis out and given them carte blanche to just dump on Solana and all that sort of stuff. But again, Mert's take on some of the various posts that are coming out, and they're just flying all over the place. These guys are probably massive ETH holders, right? So, there aren't any good criticisms of my bags, and then dismiss the person immediately. This is peak narcissism, according to Mert. So I don't know who wins in crypto, but I guarantee you it won't be anyone who thinks they've already won. So that's a really good point. And, this was in response to this post. Did Ethereum make a mistake by outsourcing its execution, as into L2s? I don't think there are many strong criticisms for Ethereum. Things like fragmented liquidity and bridging UX will be resolved. Although, with all of the L2s and L3s, I doubt that fragmentation will be resolved. Think about this. If you've got 50 plus L2s and L3s all just coming out, I mean, the rate they're coming out, I doubt that the fragmentation will be resolved. If anything, it'll create more fragmentation because liquidity just be patched all over the place. Whereas monolithic chains like Solana, everything is one single state machine, right? That's the whole point of it. These are some of the Ethereum maxi arguments or whatever, but regardless, you got to remember that even Anatoly said here that he thinks Vitalik Buterin is awesome and an example for everyone to follow in the industry. And even Raj, the other co-founder of Solana, says any indications to the contrary from fringe people on Twitter. Solana loves Vitalik. So just keep that in mind. And also Anatoly said here as a hill that he's willing to die on is improving performance, especially numbers of concurrent block producers, liters per second, actually solves all the problems that economic security pretends to solve. So that's Ethereum is going after economic security, right? Now he goes into a lot of detail here, and I would go into all of it, but I think this video has probably been going on for a little bit too long. So this is him, I guess, defending his position on Solana, and I'm on board with it. I think that it makes sense to me. So anyway, let's move on from this. I think that this whole debate, all this sort of stuff will just quieten down, and the ETH maxis can go back to whatever it is they do, and Solana will continue to ship and be one of the most used chains now and most likely into the future. So anyway, Ionet and Leonardo AI, similar to Midjourney, I would say. I haven't used it myself, but it is in one of my tabs on my computer to check out, and has been for maybe like a few months now. But anyway, you can see some of the really cool images and art that it can create. Look at this detail. This is so cool. That's by Leonardo. All of these, really, really cool. So there you go. That's Leonardo. So the update is Ionet and Leonardo team up to transform AI image generation with high performance GPUs at cost-efficient cloud computing. So there you go. The Ionet allows you to share your graphics card resources to something like Leonardo now, for example, to assist with the compute and processing of various AI operations. So there you go. This is adding some decentralization to the processing of Leonardo, as Ionet allows you or me to share our graphics cards to process these requests. As people will type a request in, it'll go to the server farm of GPUs, and the request will be processed there. Also, Ionet will allow some of our own compute to be used for completing these requests, and then we'll get rewarded tokens as a result of it, which is cool. So we've got another Mad Lads airdrop. So lads, in order to qualify for the Aether Cloud drop, you must link an EVM address to your Sol wallet. So just go to Aether if you have a Mad Lad and just link an EVM address and go from there. So there you go. Another airdrop for Mad Lads holders, which is really cool. And just to wrap things up, there's a Dimension airdrop for the Mand network. So again, if you have Dimension and you have it staked, then you can just go to Dimension portal and connect your wallet. And then essentially when you connect your wallet to the Dimension portal, it will bring up the 0x address, which is what you need. Now, if you go to Kepler, like I use Kepler personally, when you go into Kepler, at least for me, I can't see my EVM address in there. But if you go and you connect your wallet to the Dimension portal, then that's one way you can reveal it. And I took a picture here, so you'll see up in the top corner the Ethereum or EVM address. And then you can come over here to claim, wow, there's like 1 day left, so hopefully you see this in time, the rolldrop.mand network, and then pop in your address and hit claim. That's all you need to do. So there you go. I don't know how much it'll be worth, but I think I got a few hundred tokens out of it, so it's pretty cool. Anyway, that is definitely enough for today's video. So hope you liked it, hope you found it helpful. And if you did, then please give the video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more content like this. And go check me out on X if you want all this alpha in real time before I can do a video on it. And remember to check out BloFin, link in the description below, if you want to trade on a centralized exchange with no or minimal KYC. And I will see you on the next one. This is Kryptolytix signing out. Have a good one.